and happy Tuesday, March 28th, 2023, and welcome to a birthday week for me edition of what I like to call the Isolation Cabin. I am your host, the vegan you believe in, Kirk Cadet, and here on the Isolation Cabin, we like to talk about the different forms isolation takes on, whether positive or negative, the effects it has on us, and what we can do to have a better handle on it and have a better quality of life going forward. So I want to talk to you guys today about the issue of isolating yourself when you're in a relationship. Too often at certain points when we're dating someone, seeing someone, in a long-term relationship with someone, one or the other might get to a point where they become closed off, become isolated, and even when they're there, it doesn't feel like they are there. I've been through it before. I've been guilty of it myself before. And it's a bad predicament to be in. And an unhealthy predicament to be in. When you and your partner are not communicating, not talking, and one person just feels like they're not even trying, then some serious work needs to be done and some serious issues need to be dealt with. Because in order for any relationship to work, in order for any relationship to be successful, it's a two-way street. It can't be a situation where one person's putting in all the work, all the effort, and going out of their way to make the other person happy, and the other person doesn't even try. That is not a healthy, sustainable relationship, and that shit is not going to last. And why do people become isolated in relationships? Why do they get to that point? One reason, understandably so, it could be because they're depressed over something. It could be an issue with their career. It could be a family tragedy. It could be going through some kind of midlife crisis, things along those lines. It could be a million and one different things, but admittedly, in this life, things happen to us that rock us to our core, put us in a bad headspace, and it could take a long time to come out of it. But with that being said, being that closed off and being that isolated is not fair to your partner. I understand things happen. I understand sometimes we get to that point, but overall, that shit is not fair to the other person at all. If you're not talking to them, if you're not communicating with them, if you're not trying, if you're just simply always closed off, then what the hell are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to help you? How are they supposed to get through to you if you won't even try to let them know what the problem is and try to fix it? Yeah, because you can't do that to your significant other. You can't just not talk to them. Yeah, that depression could be a motherfucker. That depression could definitely be something that makes you not feel like yourself. And although, like I said, that behavior of isolating yourself isn't okay and not fair to your other partner, I can understand why it happens. And also a reason why people might become isolated in a relationship is because maybe they've come to a point where they're in a rut. And they're just not clicking, they're not vibing, and it's apparent that there's a lot of issues. And it happens. When you're with somebody for a long period of time, there are going to come points where you feel bored and you feel like things aren't clicking the way they should. But when it gets to that point where you guys aren't even talking, you're not even communicating, and you're just closing yourself off for them to the point where they don't even know who you are anymore, then that's a problem. More than your parents, more than your siblings, more than your cousins, whoever else, your best friends, whoever else have you. If there's one person you should never ever isolate yourself from and distance yourself from, it's your significant other. Because if it gets to that point, then that is something that is very hard to recover from. I know relationships take work and I know relationships take effort, but a part of that effort is healthy communication. And when you don't have that, and if one person or the other doesn't even want to try, then the days of that relationship are more than likely numbered. Because as I mentioned a few minutes ago, without healthy communication and actually talking to each other and talking out your issues, most relationships won't last. And in all honesty, they shouldn't last. Because there's probably nothing more detrimental other than besides cheating than when one person just becomes closed off. It just shows that they're not invested anymore, and in many ways they just don't care anymore. And when one person just doesn't care anymore, what's the point of even going on with it? And like I said before, I know things happen. I know tragic events in life happen that might cause us to feel isolated and might cause us to feel depressed and not want to talk as much. But don't let that shit ruin a good relationship. Don't let that shit drive a wedge between you and somebody worth keeping in your life. Because it's not worth it. Especially if that certain someone and that relationship is something worth having, worth preserving, and worth fighting for. Don't allow yourself to become that closed off and that unhappy that you can't even talk to the person that loves you the most. Because that one person is the one that you should be able to trust, the one that you know has your back, and the one that you know will be in the trenches with you. But that person can't help you and can't fight with you if you don't open up to them. So I urge you, do not ever get to a point where you don't talk to your partner, you don't communicate with them, and where you just mentally check out. It's bad for yourself, it's not healthy for yourself, and it's also very cruel and very unfair to the other person. Especially when that other person is trying, putting in the effort, and genuinely wants to help you get through whatever you're going through. That's wrong to not give them that same effort back. And when you go through those ruts and you go through those challenging times with your significant other, you have to really dig deep and ask yourself how much you're willing to fight for that relationship, how much you want to keep that relationship, and how much it really means to you in the long run. Because if it does mean that much to you and you do want to savor it, then you can't be closed off. You can't push them away. You can't shut them out. You got to let them in. You got to be willing to be vulnerable. And you've got to be willing to have hard conversations sometimes. Because if you're not willing to do those things, and you're going to keep yourself isolated and keep yourself distant from your partner, then in all honesty, you don't deserve them. Because the way I look at relationships is I look at them as a team. It's not one person catering to another person and that other person refusing to cater to them. It's not about one person being pampered to and one person being taken care of. It's both of you taking care of each other. Both of you being there for each other, talking to each other, working out your issues with each other, and doing shit together. Because when you're in a relationship, it's not you and me, it's us. And some people forget that. Some people forget that healthy relationships, it's about two people working together as opposed to one person having to go out of their way to cater to the other and do right by the other. And unfortunately, with social media nowadays and a lot of the things I see on there, I see a lot of people promote unhealthy relationships and relationships where it is a one-way street and it is one-sided. And I'm here to tell you guys, do not pay attention to that bullshit. Do not believe that bullshit. Because anyone who tells you that a relationship is a one-way street and it's all about, oh, what this person does for me and what this person's willing to do for me, then honestly that person deserves to stay single. That selfish bullshit is for the birds. And if you're one person who stays isolated and just stays closed off and doesn't even try to come out of that and talk to their partner, then honestly, you don't deserve to be and shouldn't be in a relationship either. Because as I said, being that kind of person and doing that kind of shit is not fair to your partner. Especially when they did nothing wrong and all they're doing is just trying to help you. Because you don't treat people that way, especially people who love you, care about you, and will bend over backwards just so they can be there for you. Shit is wrong, yo. And I know it's not easy. I know it's hard to come out of your shell, and I know it's hard to be vulnerable. But if you want something worth lasting and worth preserving with someone else, you have to do it. You have to. You can't avoid it. And if you're someone who thinks, oh, expressing my feelings is weak, expressing my feelings is for pussies, expressing my feelings is some soft ass shit, then yo, you need to get a handle on whatever motherfucking advice people are giving you. Because that is the worst advice and the worst shit you can ever exercise and practice. Yeah, because especially if you're a guy, there's always been this stigma that if you express your feelings, if you talk about your feelings and let yourself be vulnerable, then yeah, you're a pussy and you're soft and you're a little bitch and all this other bullshit analogies. And that's why a lot of dudes grow up to be dudes in relationships who don't communicate, who don't talk, who don't know how to express themselves in a healthy way. And it happens with women too, no doubt about it, but there's especially a big stigma on men when it comes to expressing their feelings. And yo, you don't have to be afraid of that shit. You do not have to be scared of expressing yourself and talking about shit that hurts and talking about experiences that were traumatizing. You don't have to be afraid of it. Because the more you talk about that shit, the more you let that shit out, the better off you are going to be. You can learn why you are the way you are, why certain things happen the way they did. And the more sense it starts to make, the more motivated you'll be to start making changes and start making the moves necessary to get to that next level. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. But especially when it comes to your partner, especially when it comes to relationships, opening up, talking, and just not being afraid to have those kind of tough conversations will do a lot of good. Yeah, because just talking about shit and expressing how shit makes you feel and what it does to you, I'm telling you from experience, it is the first step in getting a better handle on it. But you'll never get any handle on it at all, and you'll never make any progress at all if you don't talk about it, you close yourself off, and just mentally throw in the towel. And it's some sad shit to let happen. Being that kind of person who closes themselves off will cost you so many relationships, so many good experiences, so many good things, that one day you're gonna wake up and not like yourself for blowing those opportunities. So I'm here to tell you, if you're in that place and at that point where you see yourself isolating yourself and distancing yourself from your partner, then you have two choices. You either find a way to fix it and find a way to not isolate yourself so much from them and talk to them more and communicate more, or you can simply leave. Because if you're unable or unwilling to try to work on those issues and resolve them, then it's not fair to keep that other person around. And it's not fair to have them suffer as you suffer and refuse to change and do anything about it. So I'm telling you guys, the last person you ever want to isolate yourself from is your significant other. Because that's the person that you should be able to trust and talk to about anything more than anybody else. And if you can't do that, and you refuse to do that, then you don't need to be with anybody. So the choice is yours, ladies and gentlemen. Just make sure you make the right one, and the one that will bring you happiness and a better quality of life, as opposed to a depressing and unhappy one. Well, that's all the time I have for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you guys enjoyed this discussion. I hope you guys got a lot from it and learned from it. Because in order for relationships to be happy and be successful, we have to put in the work. And when you isolate yourself and close yourself off, you are doing anything but that. So I hope you guys took this advice to heart, and I hope you guys can make better decisions with this advice going forward and have better and healthy relationships going forward. And if you ever want to listen to any other episodes of this podcast, you can find it on Spreaker as well as YouTube, SoundCloud, and you can also message me through Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Look up my first and last name. Tell me what you like about the show, don't like about the show. We could talk about any other topics you want, because I will be continuing to talk about this issue of isolation, how it affects us positively and negatively, and what we can do to have a better handle on it going forward. So until next time, this is Kurt Cadet for another edition of the Isolation Cabin, and happy birthday week to me. See you guys next time.